Thank you all again for joining. With this webcast, we have a couple of different topics that we're going to cover today. So Matt Douglas is first going to talk about our Cisco collaboration suite and the differentiators between other collab offerings, and then give you some information around our new offering, RACE, which is Remote Access Clinical Equipment. If you'd like to ask questions, please do so through the Q&A. I will read those as they come through for Matt to answer throughout the webcast. We are recording this, so I will provide a link to everyone once we're done. And Matt, you can go ahead and take it away.
All right, fantastic, Gabby. Thank you. Yes, this is Matt Douglas here with CBTS. I manage our sales engineering group here, so I and my team would engage with folks out there in the field to possibly look at some of our solution sets and whether they might apply to solve some of your business problems. So thanks for the opportunity to go through a couple of things here. As Gabby talked about, we're going to talk about WebEx and then show you this, another name for it is kind of clinic in a box, some ways that we pulled some of these tools together to solve some problems for some hospitals and healthcare folks out there. So basically here, if my screen will work properly, I wanted to give you, make sure we're kind of grounded, just make sure you know who you're talking about. And some of you out there may know, right? We are traded as CBB on the New York Stock Exchange. And that really started with Cincinnati Bell, right here in Cincinnati 140 years ago. And kind of half of our company today, when you look at it, is Cincinnati Bell. And we also bought Hawaiian Telcom around 2 years ago or so. That's kind of half our business, to be the phone company, lay fiber, do 911, mission critical services, things like that. Now, Gabby and I work for CBTS, and CBTS started, about 30 years ago, first as a regional VAR, a regional IT services company in the Midwest, but over that time now has grown to be $1 billion a year IT services company all through North America. And in fact, some of these solutions we can deliver globally. We do about 50% of our business in managed services of some kind, where we pull our solution sets together, bring it in, and deliver that as a fully managed OpEx a solution for you. Now those solution sets kind of go across these 4 pillars. We're going to talk today a lot about our WebEx offerings, right? But we've been delivering managed voice solutions, UCaaS solutions for almost 20 years now. Like we deliver Cisco hosted call manager for, might not be aware of this, but for the state of Ohio, we deliver 50,000 hosted phones a month for the state of Ohio. Deliver 40,000 hosted Cisco phones a month for GE. So whole variety of customers we've been doing, from government, education, healthcare, and call manager. We've been a big BroadSoft shop now for almost 16 years. BroadSoft, a lot of you may or may not know, BroadSoft has been kind of at the core of some people say up to 45% of all the hosted phones sold out there every month are on a BroadSoft platform. We use them, AT&T, Verizon, et cetera. So the ability for us basically to use any of the Cisco call control platforms, any of the Cisco contact center platforms to bring a solution, we've now turned that into a managed service for our customers out there, which means our partners now can bring that into their solution set just like they would other UCaaS offerings. And we're going to talk specifically about WebEx rooms and WebEx meetings today, the kind of WebEx meetings and Teams solution. But we also then bring to bear to solve business problems, things out of the Meraki stack. And that's going to be part of our kind of clinic in a box example that I'm going to show. This has been a very successful product for us as well. We do 600 Barnes and Noble stores we've done with this. We're in the middle of a food service company out there with 3,000 locations. We're about 1,500 sites into that, where they wanted us to bring a Meraki firewall at the edge, a PoE, and then 6 Cisco phones at every location. So this particular stack we found has been very successful, helping people kind of build the store of the future, the branch of the future, where people are buying UCaaS because they want to move all that control up to the cloud. They don't want to manage that customer premise equipment. We're starting to see the same thing on LAN infrastructure. That if somebody could come in and bring to a company a flexible contractual arrangement to have a managed set of LAN infrastructure, Wi-Fi access points, et cetera, this has been very successful for us. So that's part of our mix too. And again, part of our kind of clinic in a box solution we're going to talk about. We've had a very successful multi-platform SD-WAN practice. Again, we're going to be talking a little bit about that in our clinic in a box. that race product. We're using VeloCloud at the edge for that. And some of you may or may not know, but we actually still are the reigning North American Partner of the Year for VeloCloud. So we've been very successful, been about a 4-year relationship with VeloCloud there. We've also greatly expanded our security practice, particularly on the cloud security side. Some of you may have heard some names like Palo Alto's Prisma or Zscaler product. Checkpoint, one of Gartner or Frost and Sullivan's kind of market leaders, also brought out a cloud-based secure web access, secure web gateway product, and we're actually the first service provider to bring that into our mix. And so we've got the ability now to, when people want to start taking a look at, again, when people in the past have been moving their PBX services to the cloud, people are talking about then, can I take my LAN infrastructure and manage it from the cloud? Same thing on the SD-WAN side. What can I do to have a ubiquitous wide area network that's really managed from one pane of glass in the cloud? Well, now the people are thinking about the same thing in the way of security. So Checkpoint really has brought out a very robust product, kind of the full unified threat management features that you'd expect of kind of layer 7 application control, of IDS, IPS. SSL decryption, more and more of us, right? As we go to websites, if you notice, they're typically, you see more and more of them HTTPS, which is an encrypted session from your browser up to that cloud resource. These next generation firewall capabilities can get in the middle of that, open that up, and make sure that there's not any malware being sent, etc. It's got a full sandboxing feature as well, so that got attachments, PDFs, whatever those attachments are, pictures. Those can be opened up and inspected before they're sent down. Then also includes a VPN client as well. So kind of being able to get back to network resources or being able to have that same kind of protection for your mobile workforce. And then Cisco has continued to expand their umbrella offering. Their umbrella offering used to kind of just be DNS based, and that's now been expanded to a full cloud UTM product as well. So we just wanted to kind of ground you real quick that for some of you that didn't know kind of where CBTS came from, how long we've been around. And we kind of call this in a lot of way our 4 pillars, of the services that we're having a lot of success in the channel with. Any of these things that we're talking about delivering here, this is all delivered in an end-to-end fashion, right? Meaning that, it kind of starts with pre-sales engagement like this. If we're lucky enough to get your business, we assign professional project management teams. We assign subject matter experts, kind of dependent on what segment of the business we're bringing these solutions to. And working with our project management, with your teams, with the customers' teams, we're basically building what we call a network design document, kind of the Bible or the blueprint for what that install is going to be. Everything that we're talking about here all includes all on-site install, on-site repair. It's all 24/7 onshore support. Right, so you're working with North American install teams, North American support teams, so you're not calling overseas for the support on this. Everything is all free moves, adds, and changes. So meaning that let's say that we come out and we put a a VeloCloud solution or a UCaaS or Checkpoint or any of these solutions, and somewhere down the road, 6 months from now, you want to make some significant changes to your environment. We're not nickel and diming a customer and asking for another $2,000 or $5,000 professional services for these changes. So free moves, adds, and changes are included kind of the life of the engagement. And then we also support, where possible, it depends some of these interfaces, but we support co-management, meaning that we're not just selling you a black box. When we come in and do consulting with a customer, and if we determine that we are the right fit and you think we are, the customer thinks we are, then we're also, going to allow and encourage and train on any kind of co-management. We've got those tier 1 through 4 data centers. We're going to take those calls. We're going to help that, help solve that business problem, but we're going to allow co-management on any of these that we can as well. So we want to talk a little bit, show you a little bit about some of the things that are going on in the WebEx world. You probably, not probably, we've all seen this huge uptick on all of us working from home, and all sorts of tools out there from Zoom and other competitors and WebEx. And a lot of times I think what we're finding is that WebEx, although as a brand name kind of known, people didn't quite understand its full set of capabilities. And yes, it can be more expensive than some of the other competitors, but there's also a lot of great use cases or a lot of great capabilities around it that people sometimes aren't aware of. So we wanted to give you a little insight into some of the tools that we use every day and some of those feature sets, et cetera. So when you think of WebEx, right, there are kind of three main components of it, right? Right now, I'm using WebEx Meetings to deliver this meeting to you, right? And in fact, inside of WebEx Meetings, there's a variety of different platforms, even the event platform, like we're using the event platform right now that allows kind of a moderated communications, allows up to 3,000 participants and even more if you want to schedule certain things. So WebEx Meetings can be used for events like this, or then the normal tool, I just use WebEx Meetings at my desktop, which allows for up to 1,000 participants. And so it's a very capable platform. We're going to go through it a little bit of being able to share screens, share videos, record this. When you do these recordings, like we're recording this right now, these recordings come back to you as a MP4 file. In fact, you can record to the cloud if you choose to, or you can record to your desktop. So it's very flexible. It's a very mature and flexible platform. If you kind of look at like the last Gartner reports, or again Frost and Sullivan, you see that WebEx Meetings is the kind of the top dog. Now there's other providers. Zoom in particular has made a lot of progress. So WebEx Meetings is part of that solution set, right? WebEx Teams is another big collaboration success that they've had here. And I want to kind of we'll show some screens. I may even go over and open my Teams up a little bit to show you that. But WebEx Teams is an environment that allows you to have a number of, like, first of all, it's an instant messaging in a presence platform. I can see who's in the office, who's out of the office, be texting back and forth, et cetera. But it's also a very big collaboration and sharing environment where I can open a room on a particular project and have internal people or external people and share files and versions of those files, et cetera. So WebEx Teams is competing very strong against the Microsoft Teams. It has some interesting capabilities that even Microsoft Teams doesn't have. And then what used to be known as telepresence, a lot of them, maybe the name because telepresence was kind of the desktop DX80 or 100 kinds of devices, or a room kit where you'd see cameras and a TV screen in a room, these kinds of things. These all come together, if you would, this entire environment right here, whether you're trying to run a collaboration meeting, whether you want devices and rooms being part of that, whether you want kind of a shared collaboration for shared spaces and files and those kinds of things. This is all one environment, if you would, in the WebEx world. So kind of start first from the WebEx Meetings perspective, and again, that's what we're using right now. We happen to be using the events portion of that, but this tool, WebEx Meetings, is all across any device, right? Whether it's my desktop, whether it's my cell phone, I have the same application on my cell phone. So literally what I'm doing right here of being able to show a screen, share an application, et cetera, I can do the same thing from a cell phone as well. So the applications, whether I'm using my desktop, a cell phone, whether I want to bring a room kit into that, room boards. Also, there's what used to be known as the Spark boards, or now the WebEx boards. So not only can I have cameras participate in that, but also boards that have a camera and be able to whiteboard and do these kinds of things as well. It's very flexible kind of on the scheduling, whether I want to schedule repeated meetings, I want to create a space instantly. These tools are very easy for me to, let's say Gabby and I all of a sudden want to get together and schedule a meeting. I can just send her a quick invite or a quick link, and we can open this up and share across this. So really the idea that Meetings is a very mature platform, the same kinds of ability to have multiple participants, share the applications that I'm in right now. It's a very simple, kind of push button board, if you would, to maybe mute my microphone, to turn my video on and off, to share my screen like we're seeing right here. So these things, it's a very easy to use yet mature platform. Now, there's a couple of different versions of that for specialty, right? We've got the events that we're using right now. I've got a desktop that is normal. There's a training version of this that is useful for kind of teaching or school situations where you literally can have, let's say, a professor at the beginning of the room like this talking about a presentation, and then break people out into learning groups, then bring them back in, even determine if somebody's listening or watching this, how much time they're spent surfing on the internet as opposed to actually keeping this on the screen. So there's a lot of other different variances of meetings for particular use cases, like the webcasting as well mentioned down here, even in big enterprise environments. So WebEx being a very mature platform, whether it's use case for just for Gabby and I to set up a meeting, or whether it's, you know, meetings of the normal version up to 1,000, events I want to get larger at 3,000, webcasting, et cetera. There's a lot of flexibility in the WebEx meeting platform. The Teams experience that we talked about, let me just actually see if this works for us here. Go out of this. And I'm going to go and open my Teams space up real quick. I think you can see it on the screen. As you'll see here, I can literally sit and I decide that, okay, I want to talk to Gabby real quick. I see that Gabby's active. She's been on Teams in the last couple of minutes. And I can decide then to send a message off to Gabby, and we can communicate about a particular thing we want to talk about. I can have tools up here to choose to share my screen with this tool with Gabby. Maybe I've got something on my screen I want to test and show that. Gabby earlier today sent me the last version of the file that we're going to be working on. Now, this concept then of being able to instant message, to share content with a user like Gabby, to share files, then gets extended to an idea called spaces as well. So this is a particular space we have internally called our SE and VoIP engineering space. And it's a space where we're sharing files back and forth, asking questions of multiple people internally. There's some, 20 people or so that are in this space. And when I decide to bring people in a space like that, it can be both internal and external. So let's say that we've got a particular, we're working on a customer here, Q2 banking, their proof of concept that we're doing with them. It's a big 800 concurrent call SIP trunking that we're doing with a customer. Well, we've built a space here that's both internal and external and invited. So now we've got people who can participate both internal and externally, share files, see results, etc. So this environment, and I could even use this environment even just to make a call to a particular person, right? Again, to instant message to somebody. But this collaboration environment, we're finding very powerful in our own business to not only talk and work with one another remotely, but then also to create spaces and work on projects with, with our external folks as well. So that was kind of like a quick overview, but then again, this is a slide just talking about the fact that, it has the ability to do all these kinds of collaboration tools that you'd expect. And there's even some links into, Office 365, G Suite, et cetera. Not, sometimes those can be some challenges. Office 365 isn't always the easiest to link into for things, but there are things that we can do on that side as well. Now, security, as you probably heard, has been a huge deal, and particularly Zoom out there. Now, Zoom is, apparently addressing those kinds of issues. But if Cisco has been good at one thing through the years, and that is security, and everything to do with the WebEx experience, whether you're talking about sharing files, sending messages, sending voice, whatever, everything is encrypted. Whether it's encrypted at rest, like when we record this and it gets stored, in the cloud, it's all encrypted. Whether we're sending data, right? Whether we're talking about, the actual media stream, the voice or the signaling for those things or the video. Cisco is very strong on the security side and publishes all of this, right? So anything to do with concerned about what they're doing, how they store this thing. So Cisco has built these platforms from the very beginning to support, government, education, enterprise, Fortune 50, et cetera. So those kinds of environments, those kinds of customers expect a level of security that maybe hasn't been able to be delivered by some of the other, less expensive platforms, if you would. So security is a big thing. Any of your customers would like to talk about that, we've got experts on our teams that know a lot more about the security aspect than I do that we would love to engage with you. When you talk about doing WebEx, oftentimes it's kind of a WebEx, both meetings and teams out there together. And I don't want to go in too much of great detail because it can get a little confusing, but there basically is, if you've got customers who have over 250 users, they can purchase the WebEx Teams and meetings for $20 a user. Less than those things, oftentimes it's in a named user category. So it's about $30 a user per month. There is what's called an active user model, and it could be a little confusing here, but let's say we've got an environment with some 1,000 employees and they want to deploy WebEx, but they don't really know how many people are going to use it. In this model, we can actually deploy WebEx across the entire environment, but we only charge for 15% of those users. So we'll say 150 users the first year, and it gets trued up then on a yearly basis. So let's say at the end of the year, now 300 people are using it, then that gets trued up. Sometimes this is a great way to come in and get WebEx to an environment for the first year at a great price, understand, okay, in the end, maybe we've got 300 people are using this, and we'd like to then move them over to an enterprise agreement, something like that. Now, on the named user situation right here, this is usually used for smaller environments, and we can go down in that to 5 users. You will see sometimes, if you look over on Cisco's site, you can start to buy versions of this combination for less than the $30 a month. But when we deliver this, we are delivering this with a full white glove experience, right? And so it is being handled by our PM teams, right? All the way through making sure the install's there, the customers are up, et cetera. When you purchase it just directly on WebEx's site and some of the other SMB offerings that would get down to, let's say, $15 or $19 a user, those don't come with any of that support, right? This comes with all the full support of white glove, our project management, our tier 1 support if you need any help, tier 1 through 4 support if somebody needs help with running applications, et cetera. So there is some advantage to buying the product through a partner like ourselves that has turned this into a managed service, with all the kinds of white glove treatment and day 2 support that you'd expect. Again, this is a little bit more on the licensing. It's a little too much to go through completely. Now, there are services available as well for callback numbers. So if you'd like to add callback numbers in a particular country, these services are available across the globe. And so let's say you've had some people who'd like to have a callback number in Germany or France, those kinds of things. This is all supported. So as we would engage with a customer and they want to look at some other features, right, of some things like callback numbers, either internationally or a particular country, we can do those things. I already kind of mentioned it. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, please.
Really quick. We have a couple questions on WebEx Meetings. So how easy is it to invite people outside of your organization? And then are there extra steps to set up the storage for sharing content?
No. So it's really easy. You literally send them a link. They follow the link, sign up, put their email address, and they're now able to join in that room, right? And when they join in that room, they have all the same capabilities that we have. So like our normal email, we're not allowed to send more than a 20 meg or 25 meg file, I think it is. So when we're working on big PowerPoints, before we all kind of bring them down in their size, we want to send them out or turn them into a PDF, we're using that team space to send those back and forwards to one another. So even though we've invited somebody else out that's not part of our domain, when they come in and work on a space with us, they have all the same rights to be able to share file size, see everything that we've seen, et cetera. So that's another beauty of the Teams environment, is they've made it, even though we have our CBTS, Teams environment, and maybe company XYZ, that we might sell this to has their environment, inviting a third party to come into that shared room and now be part of that, or then later on just instant messaging presence, they have the same capabilities.
Okay, great. And then also, if people using the free version of Teams Can they communicate with people that have the full WebEx version?
They can. The free version does limit, if you use, there's a audio and video conferencing that you could do inside Teams, and there's a limit to that, I think of like 3 or 5 participants. So there's some limit to that particular sharing, but even if they're on the free version, we can be sharing documents back and forth and instant messaging and presence one another, yes.
Okay, great. Those are the only questions for now.
Okay. As we kind of talked about, this is we're providing a full project manage service, right? So we've got project management there involved with the kickoff, pulling together the licensing, helping get everything set up in the interfaces. We provide them access, of course, to support, et cetera. If they want some optional virtual training, usually it's not needed, but we can provide that. And then we provide a complete day 2 support on this. So we're gonna, if you've got any questions on, I thought I added a user to my administration interface, but I can't see it. One of the other things I didn't mention, kind of the difference between the, let's call it $15 version you could get out on Cisco versus our version, really kind of the service provider version. The service provider version has an administrator for your organization, and you've got a complete report on analytics of who's using what inside your environment, what, usernames, changing passwords, any of these kinds of things, et cetera. So the ability as well to administer an entire company is much different than if you're just buying 1 or 2, on the kind of SMB offering that you see on Cisco side. So the day 2 support is included with this, and we're going to take those calls, help you with, you'd had trouble putting something administrative interface, whatever. And then if there is some bigger problem, it doesn't happen very often, but we would then be a shepherd or kind of open cases on your behalf with Cisco TAC if we need it. This actually talks about the training here. Excuse me, I'd forgotten this was here. So we're including access to all the tutorials, et cetera. And then if you feel like, and it doesn't happen that often, but it's available, if you feel like you'd have to, like to have some kind of virtual training, then we put together a quote for you about what that would cost to, run some virtual training for folks on how to use these tools. It's a little bit of an eye chart here. Again, we're willing to share any of the stuff we've got here, mailing it out afterwards, but kind of just talking about what are some of the strengths compared to, competitors on the ability to, have room kits and, the ability kind of, storage limits and where those things go, the number of users. So WebEx, again, it is more expensive than some of the other competitors, but it depends the customer and what you're trying to look at. It is without a doubt the most mature, secure solution offering out there when it comes to collaboration, as far as secure, complete, and mature. We are running a promo on this, and so we've got a thing we call Sell Cisco with CBTS. And as you'll see here, we've got a spiff basically of anything on the UCaaS side, anything on WebEx Meetings, right? We're paying an additional spiff over your normal kind of agreement that you have. And then as well as additional spiffs on WebEx Contact Center or Room devices as well. And then depending on the length of the agreement here, we're starting to throw in some free months as well for our customers. So Cisco, as you guys are, I think you're aware, most of you are aware, we've had a long relationship with Cisco, about a 20-year, gold partner relationship with them. And have got a lot of support at their executive level, particularly because we've been delivering a lot of these services like, the 50,000 phones to the state of Ohio, the 40,000 to GE, these kinds of things. We've been doing this with Cisco a long time, taking their services and turning them into managed services. And so in particular, 2019, Cisco kind of came on board with us to really start to build some new spiff programs out here. So any of your customers that, would like to take a look at some Cisco solutions, and they're not for everybody, our niche is where you think a Cisco solution might fit for that customer, but we've got quite a bit of support on the Cisco side to be able to then, throw in some additional spiffs on some of these things. All right, I want to go into this remote access clinical equipment, sometimes called RACE inside our business. I've heard also there are people talk about a clinic in a box. This came from work that we were doing with IU Medical in Indiana. They had a need as the COVID problem had happened here, still happening, trying to figure out how to do some remote clinics. It wasn't so easy for them just to figure out how to take and, throw a clinic in a tent up in, in front of Walmart, or throw a clinic up in, in a gymnasium somewhere, which they were, putting together to, one, figure out on testing, and also even to talk about at the time, and it's settled down a little bit in Indiana, but how do you do some work if your ER is too busy with other things, right? So we got to work with IU. We went back and got involved with VMware, VeloCloud and VMware, and basically put together an offering that is about bringing a whole site, a clinic in a box, if you would, right? And the idea being that, what if you could just package and deliver to somebody that, first of all, you figure out how to get them connected no matter what, right? So you've got LTE modems, in this case Checkpoint, with both AT&T and Verizon SIM cards in them. You take and put a VeloCloud at the edge of that, so that, via this internet, this is providing internet, and then being able to VPN back to their headquarters or data centers. Now you can, in a secure way, bring these applications back down to the site, right? So I've got internet access, I've got a smart SD-WAN box at the edge. You mount these in a mobile rack, right? So you drop that in, you drop access points in, so that, and you can build whatever SSIDs you want. Maybe you still want to build a guest SSID. Most of the time not, but you could, but you want to build an SSID for your, nurses or doctors or whatever. So internet access, SD-WAN smart edge that can connect back to applications, Wi-Fi, 24-port switch, right? Configured to whatever they need in the way of VLANs, et cetera. Rack mountable UPS, right? You need to be able to survive any kind of power outages, rack mounted power distribution internally, cabling bundles, et cetera. And then optional generator. You'll kind of see in the price if they want to have a generator associated with this, et cetera. And then bringing phones in, right? Not that the phones don't have to hang off of necessarily, because they don't, they're a separate system. They're not hanging off of the hospitals, or healthcare's phone system, but they're available there for emergency calls, calling pharmacy, calling back, whatever. And we bundle that all together, if you would, in one package, right? And that package then is put together in basically 3 boxes. We put the whole rack together, brought that in a box, right? Separate box for the phones and that equipment, separate box for the generator. And then one of the things we found in this offering as well is that when they deploy this, kind of clinic in a box or remote access clinic, they might need laptops as well to be installed out there, or wristband printers, scanners, a mobile cart, these kinds of things. So we added that as an option in here as well. And so the idea was to make it easy for somebody to simply call us, and within 2 weeks' time, a week if we had to, but quickly be able to bundle this together, ship it on site, and then have a complete turnkey install. So this again is the same kind of, if somebody wanted to engage, it's the same kind of end-to-end management on this, starting from the very beginning with design around their applications and the VPNs they need to make sure that they're going to get back to these applications in a secure way, right? Because they've got HIPAA rules, et cetera. And this whole package then includes not only design work, the packaging, the shipment, but the hands on the feet, then, the hands and feet on the street to do this install. So it's a complete turnkey, walk away and it's all running this clinic in a box. We talked about it. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Quick question. What if my customer is not using VeloCloud? Can they still connect to this race equipment?
So they don't have to use VeloCloud. Let me just go real quick here. The answer is they don't have to, but here's why we'd still keep that there. There is that Cradlepoint device, right, that's connected to AT&T and connected to Verizon, right? We're using the VeloCloud box to build a VPN, right? And that VeloCloud box basically VeloCloud has a number of things called a cloud gateway that we'd use here, that we would build a VPN back to their data center. Now, that terminating VPN here, this could be on any device. We could be terminating that back to a Silver Peak, device, back to a Cisco ASA firewall, back to a Fortinet. It doesn't make any difference. So don't think about, I guess the reason I wanted to do a quick drawing was, don't think about the fact that we're using VeloCloud right here to, one, be a firewall to get out to the internet if they wanted to surf here, but then two, to build a VPN from our gateways, VeloCloud gateways, back to their resources. It doesn't make any difference what kind of SD-WAN fabric they want out here. So technically, could we deliver with the Velo, but when we sat down and went with you in a little more detail of how we're doing this, how we're building the VPN with the customers, IT people, they're not going to care we're using a Velo to help facilitate building that VPN. So the answer is yes, but you probably see we go ahead and keep it in there, and the folks would want us to keep that in there. Talked about our phones being delivered there as part of the package. And then this is talking about some of the finances, right? So what's required from a customer is that they do purchase some components. We're asking them to pony up, if you would, the capital for the cradle point, the mobile rack, the UPS in there, the rack mounted equipment, the wiring, et cetera. So they've got about a $3,000 expense that they buy some equipment. We would then layer on approximately $570 a month. That's a 12-month pricing. You want to make this into a 36-month, we can do that too, but right, it's been mostly 12-month. So, and then there is a $10,000 install fee. Okay, it's the project management and the turnkey install. So the bottom line is that they would be engaging with us for $570 a month, and then approximately $13,000 up front, unless they wanted the generator or some of these optional other pieces, windows, wristband printers, things like that. Now, when we do this, from a monetary standpoint, from your perspective, we are paying the same full commissions on the monthly service. And this, we're also then paying a one-time spiff equivalent to $2,500 on this. So it does have some hefty project management fees, because to pull all the smart people in and get it done and designed in 2 weeks for somebody takes some real labor and some smart folks. We are charging a decent amount for it, but at the same time, we are sharing a decent amount back with the partners as well. Now, to the point of like some customization, we've had customers say, hey, I like all of this, but I don't need your phones. Or I like all this, I'm already a Ring Central partner. That's fine. We're open to, to designing some of these components in a custom way. In fact, even we've had similar conversations. We're in the middle right now of a proof of concept with a construction company in Michigan that basically has a similar problem. They've got they got 50 temporary locations that last somewhere between 6 months and 2 years. And they really wanted to build a trailer of the future. And so we're in the middle right now of using components like this to build for them a repeatable trailer of the future too. So this doesn't just have to be on the retail side. We're open to do these things in a commercial environment too. Anybody who thinks they need to deploy repeatable, short-term locations. So. Abby, I don't know whether you've got any other questions there. This is kind of at the end, but I hope it was useful to talk a little bit about what some of our experience has been on the WebEx side. We'd love to engage with WebEx, and the same thing on this kind of the race or clinic in a box, or even the idea of using some of these components in a temporary way for people's construction trailers or whatever those situations are. We'd be happy to investigate those things. So, any other questions, Gabby?
Yep, so there was a question through around WebEx Meetings and Teams. How Are those platforms different than the security and privacy flaws that we've all been hearing about with Zoom?
So we could pull some other folks on to go deeper, but this is some of the things I know so far. One of the things you might have seen with Zoom was that Zoom had made a big mistake and allowed recordings to be put in AWS. Zoom is all built in AWS. And Zoom had allowed recordings to sit in AWS unprotected. And there are people who found those recordings and pulled them down. Cisco, from the very beginning, when they built their cloud, everything was encrypted at rest, encrypted in their data centers. And so security was at the forefront of everything they did there. Zoom originally, when they released the product, particularly the free product, didn't have the clearest password protection or ability to kick people out. So you might have heard some things about Zoom bombing coming in, where people would come in and deliver inappropriate content in the middle of a, presentation with your kids or business or whatever. Zoom's made a lot of changes on the user interface to tighten that up, to have different defaults and to not make that as easy. Well, Cisco from the very beginning allows us to, on a meeting from the very beginning, I can decide I'm only allowing people in that I approve, or if they come in, immediately kick them out. These controls have always been in there. So kind of the understanding from the beginning of Cisco that this was a secure environment. It needed controls over who came into meetings. It needed everything stored and encrypted at rest in the right kinds of ways. That's just Cisco's done that from the beginning. Zoom, with massive growth and a nice product, don't get me wrong, Zoom is a good looking product. Zoom has made some mistakes on the security side. Now, I'm sure they're starting to address some of those, but that was some of the differences there.
And then one last question. How does WebEx fit in organizations that already are using Microsoft Teams, for example? Can WebEx help fill gaps between two different platforms if they're needing other additional meeting services?
Probably only in some really unique situations. WebEx Teams if somebody already likes WebEx Teams, Microsoft Teams, if they're already with Microsoft Teams, and it's working for them from a corporate level, if all of a sudden, if they needed to do some bigger meetings, right? If they needed to do some big webcast, right? Or some big events, or they had some specific needs for now running remote training for a lot of people, there are some features inside of the WebEx events, trainings, and webcastings that Microsoft Teams can't do. But general day-to-day use, if somebody's happy with Microsoft Teams, is probably, it's not necessarily, you have to go through this kind of examine some of the strengths and weaknesses. If all of a sudden they had a particular weakness over here, like this meeting capacity, right? Generally speaking, Teams is 250 people in a meeting. Well, that's usually okay, but if you're going to get where you need more than that, then maybe that might fit, right? So it's going to have to be some niches there that are pretty particular.
Okay, it looks like that's all of our questions for today. So if you decide that you have any other questions for Matt, please send those directly to him or reach out to your channel manager. We also have a webcast coming up next week around our healthcare practice, and then more information into the RACE offering with use cases, and a guest speaker, Dustin Lake, which is our CIO and principal of our healthcare practice. So look out for that invite as well, and thank you all for joining today. I will also send a presentation for you, a copy of this presentation, and a link to our recording as well later this evening. So stay safe out there. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a good day.